Conservation, A-level biology. So what is conservation? So conservation, the definition is the protection and management of species and habitats or ecosystems in a sustainable way. And sustainability is where there is enough resources that are taken to meet the needs of the people today, but without reducing the ability of people in the future to meet their needs. And conservation is a dynamic process, as conservation methods need to be adapted to the constant changes caused naturally and by humans that occur within ecosystems. Conflicts in conservation. So not everyone approves of all the conservation methods. There's often conflict between the humans' needs and their conservation requirements. So careful management is needed to find a balance and maintain the sustainability of natural resources. As an example, the Masai Mara Reserve in Kenya, there are large areas of grassland with lots of wildfire. So the individuals there raise livestock like cattle for their jobs, and that takes them into conflict with conservationists because overgrazing by livestock can abolish grassland for wildfire. Conservation trusts are working with the people to help them make money from land through conservation and ecotourism projects, as well as farming, and to farm in a sustainable way. Economic needs are met, but they are still allowing the wildlife to be conserved. Conservation methods. So the first one is management of succession. So human activities can disturb the process of succession. Conservation regularly includes preventing succession in order to preserve an ecosystem in its present stage of succession. So there, as an example, there are big areas of Scotland moorland that provide habitats for many species of plants and animals. If the moorland was left, succession would lead to a climax community of spruce forest, resulting in the loss of the moorland habitat, and could lead to the loss of some of the plants and animals that currently live there. Preventing succession keeps the moorland ecosystem intact. There are a few ways to manage succession to conserve the moorland ecosystem. And these are: animals are allowed to graze on the land, so the animals eat the growing points of the shrubs and trees, which stops them from establishing themselves and helps to keep the vegetation low. Managed fires are also lit, and after the fires, secondary succession will occur. The plant species that grow back first, the pioneer species, are species that are being conserved, for example heather. Larger plant species will take longer to grow back and will be removed again the next time it's burnt. Seed banks. A store of seeds from different plant species. And seed banks act as a backup for the conservation of plant species in the wild. For example, if a plant species becomes extinct or is lost from a habitat, stored seeds can be used to reinstate the species. Seed banks are a good way of conserving plant species. Many species can be conserved in a small space, as most seeds are small. Seeds can also be stored anywhere in the world and for long time periods, as long as it's cool and dry. However, the seeds have to be frequently tested to see if they're still viable, which can be expensive and time consuming. The third one is captive breeding programs. This involves breeding animals in controlled environments. Species that are endangered are already extinct in the wild and can be bred in captivity to help increase their numbers. However, there are some problems with captive breeding. For example, animals like pandas have problems breeding outside their natural habitat, which can be hard to reconstruct in a zoo. Animals bred in captivity can be reintroduced to the wild. This increases their numbers in the wild, which can help to conserve their numbers or bring them back from the brink of extinction. Reinstating animals in the wild can cause problems. For example, reintroduced animals may carry new diseases to habitats, harming the species that live there. The fourth one is fishing quotas. Limits to the amount of fish species that fishermen can catch. Fishing quotas can help conserve fish by reducing the numbers caught and killed. They aim to avert a situation where fish populations reach such small levels that they're threatened with extinction. But fishing quotas are disliked by fishermen, or some fishermen, as they limit their income. There can be problems with discards. Ships catch lots of fish, then they throw back some of the fish, and they're often dead already, so they don't actually exceed their quota. This is quite careless and doesn't contribute to the overall conservation of fish. In areas where there are fishing vessels from more than one country, cooperation is needed for quotas to actually be effective. The fifth one is protected areas. For example, national parks and nature reserves protect habitats and the species in them by restricting urban and industrial development and farming. Habitats in protected areas can be managed to conserve them. As an example, some woodlands are managed by coppicing. This is cutting down trees using a method that lets them grow back so they don't need to be replanted. This helps to conserve the woodland and permits some wood to be harvested. Protected areas can also have problems though. For example, national parks are used as tourist destinations and many are funded by the income from tourists, meaning there's often conflict between the need to conserve but also the need to allow people to visit and use them. So, as a past exam question, an example, in northern India there is conflict of interest between farmers of livestock, like cows, and people trying to conserve ibex, a wild type of goat. When livestock are given extra food, their populations can grow too large and compete with ibex. Name the type of competition between livestock and ibex. That would be interspecific competition because they are different species. Livestock will outcompete ibex if they are in the same habitat or if they eat a similar diet. Scientists investigated this conflict of interest. The table below summarises some of the scientists' findings. A score of 0 indicates that food or habitat is the same. There must be a balance between the need for conservation of the ibex and the need for farmers to keep livestock. Using all the information, suggest and explain 3 actions that the farmers could take to achieve this balance. So, they could say, do not provide the livestock, cows or horses or yaks with extra food, as their population will not grow large enough to cause competition. Or you could keep small numbers of livestock or yaks so that their population will not grow large enough to cause competition. You could say do not farm horse or choose animals other than a horse to farm as they have the same habitat and similar food to the ibex. Keep horses in close or separate areas as they could occupy the same habitats as the ibex. Farm cows as they have the least similar food and one of the least similar habitats to that of the ibex. You could farm yaks as despite eating the same food they live in very different habitats. Or you could only grow crops so there's no competition at all.